Our role in the fatberg project was to apply our environmental forensics techniques. These are quite complex analytical techniques in order to try to tease out the heavy metal and the organic compound contaminants within the fatberg matrix. Really just an investigative look to see what was there, how complex those mixtures were, and whether there were any particular chemicals there of concern. Well, in the end, we analysed 3 samples of the fatberg. They looked a little bit different from each other physically. In fact, chemically, they were quite remarkably similar. We looked first of all for a range of heavy metals in case there'd been any accumulation of those over time. And in fact, we didn't find particularly high levels of any of the metals that we looked for. And we spread the net quite widely across the periodic table for that. So if there was something there, toxic levels of lead or mercury or cadmium, then we would have expected to find them. That's perhaps not too unsurprising because the metals would perhaps be expected to dissolve into the fat itself. We also looked for a range of different pesticides and veterinary drugs, chemicals that are used in agriculture or in veterinary practice. But a lot of those are also more water soluble than fat soluble. So the fact that we didn't find those in our analysis doesn't necessarily mean that those aren't going down the drain into the sewer. It just means that the fatberg itself isn't the right matrix to retain them. What we did find interesting was when we spread the net wider for the organic analysis, and we looked for a very broad range of chemical groups. And in that case, we found a lot of oil-related chemicals, things that have probably run off from the streets above. We found some solvents that are perhaps used for paint thinning or paint stripping, similar sorts of jobs that were present in the fatberg. That's going to dissolve very well into the fatty matrix and accumulate there. Things like toluene were quite abundant there. We also found traces of a chemical called perchloroethylene, or PERC. Which is something that has been used in the past as a dry cleaning chemical. It's no longer used. But there may be some other sources. Perhaps people are still using old products. Perhaps PERC is present in everyday products that we're not aware of at the moment. But that was quite unusual to find. We also found a number of organosilicon compounds. So these are organic compounds that are based on silicon as an element. They have quite a wide range of uses in personal care products, including hand creams and other products that people use day in, day out. Some of them are now recognised as being quite persistent in the environment, and they are going to be subject to restrictions and bans in the future. So the fact that we can find these accumulating in the fatberg, I think, is an indication of the fact that those regulations are not going to come too soon. And we found a range of other things which we're still investigating, certain chemicals that we need a bit more time to try and tie down and identify. But overall, it's a chemical mixture. It's clearly accumulated some things that have gone down into the sewer. We don't really know exactly what the sources of those are at the moment, but I think it's an indication that if people are using hazardous chemicals, and they are putting them down the drain, perhaps washing out brush cleaner and that kind of thing, you can find the evidence of that. It does build up, and the fatberg in that sense has been quite an interesting thing to analyse in terms of looking at just what is going down our sewers.